This lesson is for lesson 112 in math. We're looking at finding a given percent of a number. So to describe a part of a whole group, we may use a percent, a fraction, or a decimal number. When we are asked to find a certain percent of a number, we usually change the percent to a fraction or to a decimal number before we perform the calculation. So looking at example 1, what number is 75% of 20? First, we translate the problem into an equation, changing the percent into either a fraction or a decimal. We can use a letter for what number, an equal sign for is, and a multiplication sign for of. So look how they've broken it down there, percent of fraction. What number is 75% of 20? So they have number, what number, they have that represented by n, is represented by the equal sign, because that's what we're asking, what number is equal to 75% of 20. And since it's fraction here, 75% has been changed to 3/4, and of is turned to our times symbol. So n equals 3/4 times 20. Turning the percent to a decimal, what number is 75% of 20? What number is n? Is the equal sign. 75% has been changed to 0.75, and of 20 has been turned to times 20. So n equals 0.75 times 20. We show both the fraction form and the decimal form. Often one form is going to be easier to calculate than the other. So in this case, look at how they've multiplied 3/4 times 20. And they've used cancellation with 4 and 20. So 4 cancels to 1, 20 cancels to 5, 3 times 5 is 15, 1 times 1 is 1, so 3/4 times 20 equals 15. And then multiplying 0.75 times 20, we find the same answer, 15. So we find that 75% of 20 is 15. There is a little bit of an easier way to do this. You don't always have to set it up with the equation, with the n equals. Anytime that you're asked what number is such and such percent of this number, all you have to do is turn the percent into a decimal or a fraction and multiply it times your number, and you'll find your missing number. So it doesn't necessarily need to be the equation form every time, so long as you're following the correct steps. So example 2, Jamal correctly answered 80% of the 25 questions. How many questions did he answer correctly? We are looking to find 80% of 25. We can change 80% to a fraction. Remember how we change our percents to a fraction? We take the percent, we put it over 100 every time. Doesn't matter if it's 1% or 99%. Every time that number goes over 100. So 80 over 100 reduces down to 4/5. So 4/5 is our fraction. Or as a decimal number, 80% is going to be 0.80, which is 0.8. Remember, we can always drop that 0 at the end of a decimal number because it doesn't really matter when it's at the end. So percent to a fraction, 80% changes to 4/5. So this is how you can do probably all of your problems without the equation here. 80% turns to 4/5, so 4/5 times 25, and performing the calculations, they have used cancellation again there. 5 and 25 cancel each other out. So then we have 4 times 5 and 1 times 1, which gives us 20. And then percent to a decimal, 80% goes to the decimal 0.8. 0.8 times 25 also gives us 20. So we find that Jamal correctly answered 20 questions. Now look at example 3. This is an instance, this one's designed to help you see that in some cases it's going to be easier to use either the fraction or to use the decimal. So sometimes for ones like example 1 or example 2, it might be, especially example 1, it's a little bit easier to use the fraction in those cases because we can use cancellation. It makes the multiplication step a little bit easier. But for example 3 here, we're showing how the decimal can be the easier form. So we can change 6% to a fraction. 6 over 100 reduces to 3 over 50. So you can see how it would be a little bit hard to multiply with that. We'd be multiplying 3 over 50 times 12. So that's a bit of a difficult, kind of a long step problem there. Or we can just change it to a decimal number. 6% changes to 0.06. Remember, we always have to have our percent in the hundreds place. So if it's 6%, then it has to be a 0 in front of it, and then our decimal point. So it seems easier for us to multiply $12 by 0.06 than by 3 over 50. So we'll use that decimal form. 0.06 times $12 gives us 72 cents. So 6% of $12 is 72 cents. So let's look at our practice problems. For these, I would like you to do show both the decimal and the fraction way of doing them. You don't have to do that for every time that you see them, but I do want you to practice doing both, so make sure that you do both forms. So letter A, what number is 10% of 350? So let's see this. We can do 10% equals 0.10. Remember, we can take out that 0 there. Or 10% equals 10 over 100, which also equals, we can cancel out our zeros there, 1/10. So that's how we can change our percent into our decimal and our fraction. So as a decimal, it's going to be 0.1. As a fraction, it's going to be 1/10. So let's see how we solve it there. We can do 0.1 times 350, or we can do 1/10 times 350. So 0.1 times 350. Keep in mind that when we're multiplying with tens, all we have to do is count off our places. So once we multiply 0.1 times 350, we're multiplying by 1, so we're going to get the same number, but we do have the decimal point. So 350, let's make sure it's here, 350 times 0.1, and then our decimal point will go here in our answer because we have one decimal point, so that equals 35. And if we multiply with our fraction, 10 and 350 can cancel each other out, so it'll cancel out our zeros there. And then 1 times 35 is 35, 1 times 1 equals 1, and we get 35 for that. So make sure that you are showing both ways of doing our problems here with the fraction and with the decimal. So you can finish doing your problems there. Let me know if you have any questions over this lesson, and I am here to help. And again, make sure you're doing the correct lessons, following the lesson plans that you're given, and following along with those. Have a great rest of your day.